Okay. So to start with, I'm Amy Dunning. I'm from Airedale NHS Foundation Trust, and we've just been awarded our Level 2 accreditation. Alongside me here today is Paul. Do you want to introduce yourself, Paul, quickly?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Paul Cornish. I'm the Senior Finance Manager at Coldale, Huddersfield NHSFT. And we've also just been awarded our Level 2 a couple of weeks ago as well.
So we just want to, there's a bit of etiquette on here, just cameras on please. It's just nice to see some faces, put some faces to names. If you can mute your microphone while we're going through the presentation. Stick your hand up if you've got any questions. Happy to take questions as we go along, or there will be a bit of time at the end for a bit of a discussion and questions. So yeah, next slide please. I'm playing Chris Whitty today. So the things we're going to talk to you about, just about the accreditation in general, about our experience of working towards the Level 2 submission, bit of background on the aim of accreditation. We've got a quick video from Simon Worthington who'll tell you everything that accreditation means to him. If you don't know him, he's the lead of everything FFF and Value Maker World. And then we'll just talk a bit about the benefits that we've seen and that we think we're going to see from achieving the accreditation Level 2. And then, like I say, any questions at the end. So to start with, the aim of accreditation for me, and I think for my organisation, it's all about recognising and shouting about what you do well. I think we're all very good at doing our day job, maybe not so good at stepping back and appreciating what we're good at. And at the end of the day, we're all brilliant. We're fab, aren't we? But as accountants, I don't think we're very good at acknowledging that and accepting that. So that's something that we've really got out of this. Just taking that step back and appreciating what we can do and what we've achieved. It helps you identify any gaps that you perhaps have, so any areas that you could improve on. And the way we've done this is by sharing our experiences with other organisations and vice versa. That I was part of the assessment with Calderdale, and they did their assessment before us. So we pitched some of their ideas and took it along for our assessment. So it's really helpful, and it's steal with pride, I think is the saying, isn't it? And so yeah, for me that's what it's all about, recognising and appreciating and shouting about what you're good at. It shows a commitment to achieving best practice, so it shows that we're really keen to do the best for our customers. And the more organisations that can achieve it, the stronger we are as one NHS finance community. So we're going to try and get Simon's video to run now. If it doesn't work, or if it does work, can someone just give me a thumbs up so you can hear it, please?
Hi everybody, it's Simon Worthington here, Finance Director at Leeds Teaching Hospitals, and also leading up Future Focus Finance as part of the One NHS Finance Initiative nationally. Great that you're getting together to talk about accreditation. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I did promise I would do a bit of a video as to the top 5 reasons why I would think I would encourage that you would get accredited. I've made myself a little list down here which I will refer to. Yeah, it's all good. So first thing let's say is from point of view of definitely level 1, you're going to be doing most of those things already. So please don't get the idea that accreditation is like really onerous thing to do. It's not, hopefully. So please do bear in that mind. But the first reason I would say is assurance. Yeah. So if you're doing the accreditation and you're achieving level 1, you're going to be giving yourself, your team, and the organisation really great assurance that you've got the things in place to start your journey as being a really fantastic place to work and a great finance team. And as you move up the levels, that becomes even more powerful. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, as you move up the levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, you're able to have your little little sticker you put on your emails. People know that you've got accreditation. They know that you've got the things in place to be a great place to work and a great team and department, and that is going to help you with recruitment. It certainly helps us in Leeds that people would hear that we've got level 3 accreditation. We're mentioning that in interviews and things like that. So don't hide your light under a bushel. You know, really great to let people know that you're a great team. Thirdly, engagement. Now, the accreditation looks to the to the team to see what engagement they do with colleagues, but it is of itself a great way to get engagement with the team. So don't, if you're a deputy DOF, don't sit with the accreditation sort of stuff in your pile, sort of somewhere towards the bottom, and thinking, I'll get to that, I must fill that in. No, make it an engaging process with the team. The team will fill it in, and the team will work on if there's some things that need to be improved or things that aren't in place. The team will work on that, and once they've got that in place and you get accreditation, they'll feel really good. So it's a means to get engagement as well as a measure of engagement. And then community. So if you've got accreditation, you're saying to the world, we are part of the One NHS Finance community. We want to sign up to be positive. We want to engage. We want to do good stuff. And you're sort of putting out an advert to everybody saying that you want to join in, yeah, and you become part of that fantastic community that there is on One NHS Finance, and you've got access to all the benefits of that, being able to share ideas and get information and seek support, all that good stuff. So really great to be part of that community. And then finally, you know, it's all right to feel a bit happy and a bit proud that you've got your accreditation. You know, so that feeling of pride in the team, that we're doing good things and we can demonstrate we're doing good things. And as you come up the levels, you get external review of your work, you know, and you get that report at the end, recognising the great work that you're doing. Really powerful for boosting morale in the team and giving you a feeling of pride. So I really do recommend very, very highly to work on your accreditation wherever you're at. If you're not at level 1 yet, let's get to level 1. If you're at level 1, let's get to level 2. If you're at level 2, let's get to level 3. And if you're at level 3, let's start that campaign for level 4. Yeah, okay. So hope you have a really great session on understanding more about the accreditation journey, and all the best with it. Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
So yeah, that was just Simon going through a bit more information regarding the accreditation. Just moving on, I'm just going to do a bit of information about the different stages of accreditation. So for those that have already done level 1, you know it's a bit of a self-assessment process with verification from your finance director and the wider finance community. And then moving on to levels 2 and 3, this is a peer assessment by colleagues from another accredited organisation. So you'll get someone coming from another organisation, like we both had Ben that came and did ours, and Amy came along and sat in on our accreditation when we had it done. And this is just a bit of an overview around what the different accreditations mean. So your level 1 is just literally about making sure you have your policies in place and that the department's aware of them. When you move to level 2, it's about how those policies are implemented and how the finance function interacts with the wider organisation. When you do your level 2, you'll be asked to provide a couple of members of the wider organisation to be interviewed or come and speak about how the finance team interacts with them. And then level 3 builds on everything you've put into place and how the function promotes itself, its successes in the wider finance community and the wider NHS. I'm sure most of you are aware of these, but these are the areas of assessment, and it's the same throughout all 3 levels. for the questions and answers session, I just want you to have a think about any areas you may have concerns about with this, and any misgivings or concerns that you might want to have to discuss or get feedback on.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the approach we took to get our level 2 accreditation from an Airedale perspective. One thing, it is much more in depth than the level 1. It's all around developing and implementing and embedding the things that you identified at level 1. It can't just be one person. What we found when we were working towards level 1 was it was mainly me collating the evidence of stuff that we were already doing, pulling it all together and getting that schedule completed. When it got to level 2, it's not possible for one person to do it. It's all around making sure that you've got a development culture within your team. So it's bringing everybody along on the bus, for want of a better way of putting it. We developed a finance strategy. We aligned it with the trust strategy, but our strategy is about us, and it's about what we want to achieve, what are our priorities, and how can we be the best that we can be. We had a full team time out to talk about the strategy, so everybody has had the opportunity to contribute to it, and I think that's really important because they all feel a bit of ownership towards it, and they're all keen to work and meet the objectives that we've set in there. Our main focus was on our people, and when I say our people, I don't just mean the finance team. I mean our clinical colleagues, our external partners, anybody that we work with. How do they feel about the service we provide? And we wanted to take that into account in the things that we were developing and working towards. One thing I would say is we're really quite a small team. Don't let that put you off if you are a part of a smaller finance team. I don't think it makes it harder. In a way, I think it actually makes it a bit easier, because it helps to bring you all together and you get the opportunity to hear everybody's views, whereas if it's a bigger team, it's a bit harder to do that. So certainly don't let being part of a smaller team put you off. Then I'm just going to tell you a bit about a couple of the main focuses that we had in our work towards level 2. We put a real focus on health and wellbeing initiatives because we wanted to ensure that our people were okay. Let's be honest, the last couple of years have been two of the most difficult probably most of us have ever known, haven't they? So we really wanted to make sure that our health and wellbeing initiatives and what we were providing was what people needed. We wanted to get ourselves known, so we increased our Twitter presence. I don't know if any of you follow us on Twitter. I should have put our Twitter tag, shouldn't I, on the presentation somewhere. We encourage people to nominate each other for national and regional awards. We've been in the newspaper, so there's newspaper articles out there in local newspapers about the things that we've been doing and achieving. We've joined various different networks, and we're doing things like this, sitting here absolutely petrified talking to you lot. So yeah, it's just getting us known and getting people aware that Airedale is here. We're very, very good at what we're doing. And we also improved our communication of training courses, and we did that using a Teams channel. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had access to training and development, and I publish on that Teams channel everything that comes through FSD or FFF, and then people can access it, see what there is, register to go on various things. And then we also have a CPD log that we use to track what training people are doing. So that really helps us identify if there's any particular areas within our finance team that don't seem to be accessing training. And then we can drill into why. Is it because they don't feel like they can because they're too busy? And then we can deal with that. And then the other thing that we've really focused on is our I&D agenda, so our inclusion and diversity work. And some of you may know that that we won a HFMA award in, I can't remember when it was, last year, October, November time, which was a really, really proud moment for us. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice from our point of view. So if I was going to give you any advice, it would be RAG rate your evidence. Helps you focus on the missing evidence. Real danger, and this I did this when we first started working towards it. Collected loads and loads of evidence for the easy wins, kind of forgetting about the harder ones. So if you rag rate it, you can very, very quickly see where you've got your gaps and where you need to focus on. I'd share your evidence with your assessor really early in the process. We shared ours with Ben fairly early on, and that was really, really helpful because he helped us identify any gaps that we maybe hadn't appreciated. They're not there to examine you, they're there to support you through the process, and so use them would be my advice. Remember that one piece of evidence might meet more than one requirement, so you don't necessarily need 30 pieces of evidence for 30 requirements. You will find that some of the requirements cross cover each other, so you can use the same piece of evidence for more than one. Link it to anything you think it's relevant to. Save your evidence and index it, which makes it easy for the assessor. You've got to remember that the assessor, they've got a full-time job as well as this, so the easier and quicker they can see this evidence and link it to the requirement, it's much better. Paul's going to go into a bit more detail on how we did this because we copied his process. And just remember, it's not just about finance. Your assessor will want to speak to a budget holder or two, so make sure the wider organisation know what you're doing and why it's important. And then think outside the box for evidence. It doesn't just have to be an Excel spreadsheet or some minutes from a meeting. So we invited Ben to our team timeout for the morning, so he came and he got a real feel for the team and the culture. We've provided recordings of various meetings and things, so it doesn't just have to be the minutes and the Excel spreadsheet. Think about other things that you can potentially provide. Make it real, I think would be my suggestion. And then my final bit here is just, it's an example of our assessment agenda. So the way the assessment worked was I sent Ben a list of everybody who was available on the day that we'd agreed to carry out the assessment interviews. And then he picked who he'd like to meet with. So you can see from this list that there's a real mix of people. We've got senior staff, more junior staff, we've got people from all sorts of different services, we've got people studying, we've got apprentices, we've got placement students, so there's a bit of everybody in there. And one thing that became really obvious in this was people were coming to me saying they were worried they were going to say something wrong. My reassurance to them was it's an open and honest conversation. There's no right or wrong answer. We wanted Ben to hear how it really feels to work at Airedale. We didn't want a scripted version of Airedale, so we weren't telling people what to say. We wanted them to say what they really feel and think. And it's also okay if someone's a bit negative in that assessment interview. When we were interviewing at Calderdale, there was someone who wasn't really that engaged in the process, but that's okay because that makes it real, because you're never going to get 100% of your team coming along with you. There's always going to be a few that don't want to get involved. They just want to do their job and go home, which is fine. So that's what I would say. Don't worry if there are people that don't want to engage with it. Focus on the people that do. Spend your time and energy on the people that do. And I think that's it from me. So I'm going to pass you back over to Paul, and he'll tell you a bit about their process from Calderdale point of view.
And to be honest with you, I would say that our approach was very, very similar to Airedale's. Yeah, we needed to make sure that we had the whole team involved in the journey, and again, we did timeouts about to look at when looking at it, and we had a team of people together who collated the information, worked through the evidence. One thing we actually used was made great use of Teams, not only just to share the evidence, but we also used recordings from our meetings, so we use that as part of our evidence. We've also used we also set up a notice board within Teams for the finance function, and actually we shared some of the images of that, which is where we share a lot of the well-being stuff that we do. We share courses, we share lots of information about what's going on in the wider finance community. And from the point of the evidence, it was very easy to collate it within Teams and share it with our assessors. So we were able to share it with Ben at a very early stage, which reduced the need to send multiple emails back and forth. Ben could go in there at any time and at his own leisure and review the evidence. I think the biggest bit of feedback from our point of view is that we as a trust don't, or as a function, don't shout about the great things we do enough. So this is why, you know, I've joined on the back of that, joined a number of different groups. I'm doing this with Amy today. So, and there's other things that we're trying to get involved with. We've got someone who does a lot around diversity and inclusion and is an ambassador for us. I also suggest that you contact FFF as early as possible in the process to say that you're on that journey. That means that you can get your assessor assigned quite early on, and you can speak to your assessor and go through your evidence with them quite at an early stage, so that they can actually feedback and say these are the bits that you need to work on. So if I just show a bit of how we laid our evidence out, so this is within Teams, as you can see, we've used we've laid out done a file folder for each bit of set of evidence, and we've got the evidence schedule at the bottom. And we also ended up doing some best practice bits of best practice that Ben had asked us to feedback about, and any other evidence that we were able to provide. And then within each folder, this is how we laid it out. So we've actually labelled it up, stating which bit refers to which bit of evidence. And then this is a bit of our evidence schedule on the screen now. So we've got this side here was the bit of evidence we were looking to capture, with a bit of information under it. In this middle section, we used it to say this is what evidence also backs it up within the folders. And then at this right hand side, this was our assessor's comments, and we rag rated it. Our assessor rag rated their information, so it made it easy for us to pick up on those bits that we needed to do a bit more work on before the assessment. So if I just pass back to Amy, these are some of her highlights and bit of feedback that she got from her assessment.
Well, before I do that, Ben, is there anything you want to add at this point on the assessment process? I just thought this might be a good time to bring you in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of bits. I think as an assessor, I think it's, go back to old school Frank Wood accounting language. We're going for substance over form. We're not. This isn't like some sort of absolute sort of audit to the black and white of the letter description of the evidence. And that's why I think the most important bit is about the conversations, because the conversations and the assessment visit is what that brings the evidence to life. And I think for both Calderdale and Airedale, there was good evidence in the pro forma submission, but the best evidence and the highlights came from the conversations with people on the day. In Paul and Amy, I think it would be good as well if we shared the reports, if you're happy to, at the end of this, because I think all those highlights came out of the conversations, not necessarily what you submitted to sort of FFF as the evidence submission. I think the other thing to remember as well, even if you're looking past level 2 to level 3, even as we're a level 3 organisation, and there is stuff I'm taking as an assessor, like, Amy, your shadowing brochure, we are going to be putting that in place in Leeds, because that's something we don't do, but was really good when it came in. I've done 2 sessions internally, and Calderdale equally, there's some stuff about, your business better than usual, Paul. We're going to try and do something like that. So there's 2 sides to that learning. It's not just that learning journey in the organisation. The assessors and people like myself share and deal with pride as well. And we definitely will be. But I think the other thing just to mention as well is, I won't mention names, but one of the deputies that I spoke to was a bit worried that I didn't actually speak to them as an assessor on the day. But at the end of the process, sat there and go, I understand it now. I'm not coming in to test that the DOF and the deputy DOF have the culture that they expect and they know how to articulate it. At level 2, we're coming in to see that the level of culture and team dynamic and everything that you want to have in place exists within the team on the ground level, and we'll be putting a lot of focus on any assessment at that level, really. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Ben. That's helpful. I'm just picking up your question, Jackie, while we're at pause. How did we ensure that there was oversight of the different work streams and to see if things were going according to plan and timescales? For us at Airedale, that was me. I did keep track of everything and pull together a bit of a plan and who was going to lead on what and what have you. I think you do need somebody to coordinate it all, and I think you need somebody who can push people a little bit as well, because I'm sure we're all busy with the day job, aren't we? And people do see this as something on top of the day job. It isn't. It's just recognising and recording what you're already doing. So we used to talk about it in our fortnightly check-in. So we have a fortnightly check-in, which is a whole team. So we talked about it there, and I give feedback on what we've achieved in that last couple of weeks and what's still to achieve, and if there's anything outstanding where the focus needs to be. And it was also an item on the SLT agenda. So the senior team could then support if needed. If we needed to free people up to do certain bits and bits, then they were able to do that. Don't know if you've got anything to add from your side there, Paul and Jackie, if that answers your question.
I was going to say, not particularly. We have had a regular session in with a group who were there to coordinate each of the work streams and pull some of that evidence together, and that group was led by myself with support from our deputy DOF, Kirsty, but it was all done in a very similar way as what Amy's was done.
Answer your question, Jackie. Assuming it does. So moving on to the highlights of the assessment. A couple of things that came out of ours that I pulled out of our report, but I think, Ben, it's a really good idea sharing it with everybody here. So it came out that we're like a big family. We want to do the best for each other, which I think is one of the benefits of being a smaller team. We all know each other fairly well, and that this is a team that recognises and appreciates the effort everyone puts in. And again, we're often seen as a small trust, but it's something we wear as a badge of pride, which it is. We're proud to be Airedale and the Airedale family.
And there's some highlights from ours. So some of the feedback that came back, if they asked me to do something different, that's fine. We're here to help. And I would even go as far as to say it's encouraged for us to move around, help each other. One of our very junior members of staff was asked the question, when you have a problem, are there people you can go and speak to? And he was like, yeah, I can speak to my mentor, I can speak to my line manager, or even Gary, who's our director of finance if I need to. And then one of the operational colleagues, their response was, we don't see them as finance, but as colleagues that we can call on at any time. So these are the benefits that of being accredited. So there's the opportunity to share and promote best practice and the good work in your organisation.
Helps support future development plans by reviewing your strengths and your weaknesses, so you can see what you're doing well, what you're not doing so well, and we certainly did that when we were developing our strategy. We use that to help us put focus on the things that we maybe weren't doing as well as others, then we can bring them up to the same standard as everything else.
It's something that really motivates your team and the whole function. Really
encourages staff engagement, and it does. The staff engagement, we've found that the more we've done, the more people want to do, and the more people want to get involved, which has been really, really positive.
It helps us to identify and put a spotlight on any emerging talent in the team.
And then there's the external recognition thing, which I talked about earlier, being recognised by other organisations and showing off what you do, really.
And then just purely from an assurance point of view, it supports the CQC use of resources, which that's just from an assurance process.
And then I've just noticed your comment, Jackie, it's not an insignificant piece of work having oversight. So yes, I did have protected times as part of my role. I do have 1 day a week which is assigned to FFF, FSD. It doesn't necessarily work like that, but the senior team are supportive of me, making sure that I do get the time to coordinate all this. I think that is really important, that the person that, or people that are nominated to do that piece of work, are allowed the time to do it properly. So we're going to
say yes. Sorry, I'd say it's also built into as part of the role that I do. So yeah, I have time. It's part of my time that I have. Yeah.
So we're going to open up the floor now, really, to any questions, any comments. Is there, like Paul said before, is there any particular part of the accreditation process that's worrying you, concerning you, you're finding difficult? Is there any bits in the schedule that you want advice on what kind of evidence we used? So yeah, over to you guys. Johnny?
Hiya, I'm Johnny from Bradford District Care Trust. I've got a couple of questions. So roughly how much time did you have to spend as individuals, you as the sort of like driving force behind the process? That's one question. And the other question was, did you come across any criteria or policies that you didn't have that you had to implement as part of the process?
So I think for the second part of your question, one of the things that we didn't have, that we had to really think about was the I can't even think what it's called. You put me on the spot. I'll come back to that because it's completely left my brain. And the other thing was the PDP bit, so personal development plans. We found that people don't tend to have personal development plans anymore. It's a bit old-fashioned is perhaps the wrong word, but it kind of tends to be just part of the role now, doesn't it? Part of the job. We're all accredited with the various training providers, so we don't need to have a PDP as such, a paper-based folder with all our CPD evidence. So it was thinking about how do we demonstrate that people do have professional development and that they are keeping on top of that. So I think our CPD log does quite a lot of that, and the objectives and the training and development needs that are highlighted within our appraisal process, we link that to that particular bit of evidence. Is there anything from your point of view on things that you were missing, Paul?
I think the personal development plans was also was probably one of the biggest challenging bits for us to sort of like understand what we needed to have to provide, and a lot of that we found that when we did it and when we went through the assessment process, actually the appraisal process that we have in place worked, but there were still bits and tweaks that we needed to make, which was around more regular one-to-ones and more recorded regular one-to-ones. So that's where we were, where we just needed to make some tweaks to what we did. From a time perspective, I think from our level 1 to our level 2, it's taken us about 15 months to get through the process. And that's included spending, I would say it took us about good 6 or 7 months to pull the evidence together, and then working through with the assessor took a few more months. So it's not a process that can be done within months. It does take a while to get through that process. Would you say that? Yeah.
It took us September 20 to December 21 to get everything pulled together, and from my personal point of view, it did take quite a fair chunk of my time, not all in one go, because it's not something that you're doing on a continuous basis. But I was trying to allocate an hour or two every week to just check the schedule, check what was on there, check what was outstanding, so then I could give the update to the relevant meetings and what have you. And then at the end, it took a bigger chunk just to make sure to pull everything together, make sure all the links were there, sharing everything on the Teams channel and stuff. That did take a little bit of time. And going back to the other thing that we didn't have in place, I've just opened up my schedule to remind me, it was the business continuity plan. So we did have a business continuity plan in reaction to the COVID and the pandemic and everybody being sent home and what have you. But we're part of the wider trust continuity plan, and it's not really clear in there which bit is relevant to finance. So that's something that we're trying to work on further now and develop further before we go forward with our level 3 assessment. Does that answer your question, Johnny?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
I've just noticed Lynn's put in the chat as well, feedback from having assessed a couple of different examples of evidence from a couple of different people from a couple of different periods works best. So then it shows that it's not just being done for this, it's not just in response to your submission. And that's the main thing, I think. You're not doing it just to tick the box. You're doing it to embed it in your organisation, and it is going to be how you work going forward. You don't want to let it all just drop off afterwards.
And you'll find that there's actually quite a lot of stuff that you did at level 1 that you can then that you still use at level 2 in your evidence base. So actually, it's useful to make sure you've got your level 1 evidence and just go through it and then use it again for your level 2, because that's really important, because what you are doing is you're building on that same evidence that you've got already.
And again, as Lynn says, part of the process of gathering the evidence, it's a really positive way of improving the department. It shouldn't be a chore. I'd agree with that, Lynn, completely. One thing that I found from doing it, and others in the organisation, it's a really uplifting thing to do, because you are pulling together all the things that you do really well. And it's quite nice to, like I've said, recognise and pull out those achievements. And one of the things that I really found as well, when we got the report from Ben, reading it, it makes you feel so proud. It was, yeah, it's a really, really positive experience. I think we've got a couple more hands, have we? Caroline?
Hi, my name's Caroline and I work for York Foundation Trust. I'm the I&D ambassador there, and I just wondered, are there any specific I&D things that need to be done for the level 2 accreditation, and has the level, if that's the case, has the level 2 accreditation been lined up with this new I&D sort of framework that's come out fairly recently?
So I think the only I&D bit in here is around working to the I&D charter. I think that's the only specific bit, but we did develop on that quite a lot, because we've done a lot of work on I&D. I'm just having a quick look down the schedule. I can't think that there's much more than that. One thing I do know is that One NHS Finance are looking at the accreditation schedules and potentially updating them, so that might be something that comes in future. And that's another piece of advice I'd give, actually, is just make sure that you check the website for the latest schedule, because I found I was working towards the old one and it got to about 2 months before we were submitting, and I just happened to go onto the website and I thought, oh, this is different. It wasn't very different, but there was a couple of extra bits that I needed to pick up.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's good to know. Great. Okay. Thanks.
And I was going to say, Caroline, around I&D, there's probably already a lot that your trust has already got in place as a general thing as well that you can use. And from us, and from an extra thing that we've got a representative on the regional I&D forum as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think there is quite a lot going on in our trust, like you say, sort of at a trust-wide level. So it's kind of, engaging into that rather than reinventing the wheel, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you find you can link it to lots of different bits of the schedule. It's the thinking outside the box bit, but it will relate to lots of different bits of evidence, I think.
Thanks.
Is there anything else from anyone else? Nope. Well, I hope you found it useful. We have put Paul and I have put our contact details on the end of this slideshow, so we will be sending it out. And if you do want to get in touch with us with any specific questions, then please feel free. We're happy to support. And if you think it'd benefit from having a bit of a one-to-one or two-to-one session with your particular organisation on specific bits that you're struggling with, again, happy to do that. Jackie?
When you say sending it out, Amy, is it going to be an email to everybody that's attended today?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you.
Brill, well, if there's nothing else, we'll let you have 45 minutes of your time back. We never expected it to take an hour and a half. Paul and I can't talk for an hour and a half. We thought we might get loads and loads of questions. Thank you for coming. It's been nice to see you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Get in touch if you need to.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Thanks.